I don't know that there's a smooth transition from climate change to talking about firearms. That's why we have a 5 minute newscast in the middle. Todd Eccles joining us from Patriot Defense this morning, and he's going to be talking firearms safety, self defense, as he does on most Friday mornings. First of all, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be here. It's going to be a nice weekend. Did a little more shooting out at my range. Looking forward to it.
And again, classes coming up. Now we're in June. You got a couple of classes.
Yeah. I got a class on the 10th and the 17th. Those are both the classes for the Idaho Enhanced Concealed Carry Permit. If you're interested in those, you can get a hold of me, call me, text me. Area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. And I do want to throw out another class. I just opened up a class in July. It's the July 15th. It's called Handguns 101. And this isn't a permit class. Now, you do have to have your Idaho enhanced permit to be able to take this class. That permit, you don't have to get that from me, just as long as you have it and can
Hmm.
prove it. But this class is going to be about 4 hours long, and we're going to learn some of the same stuff you learned in your permit class, but we're going to go into more depth. We're going to learn about so reloads, how to shoot properly, mag changes, that kind of thing. We're gonna delve into it. It's gonna be 4 hours long. There's gonna be no classroom involved, so it's gonna be all on the range. And we're limiting this class to 6 people. And as of right now, I've already got 6 people. 6 people, or excuse me, 3 people signed up. So I have 3 more openings. So if you're interested, let me know.
And we want to talk about the importance of this class because I've been telling listeners the last couple of days that I had a meeting with Sergeant Doug Sugden the other day at
Hmm.
the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department. And to give you a little background, he's the fellow you go see when you need to apply for that permit. And he's also Sheriff Tom Carter dropped in too while I was at the meeting, was talking with me, and he said, Doug is the guy. Every every time there's a sheriff gets reelected, they go as well to a refresher course. Doug is the guy who teaches that in Boise for all of the sheriffs because he's basically got the code memorized.
Right.
And so he's the fellow that literally he not only is he working with people who apply for their permits, he's teaching other law enforcers the details of it. Sergeant Keith Thompson with Idaho State Police joked yesterday with me that Doug is the busiest law enforcer in the region because of that. But he was a wealth of knowledge. But one of the things we talked about while I was in the office with him, he pointed out that if you ever need to use that firearm in self defense, he said there's two questions you're going to get right away afterwards. How often do you train? And number two, do you have any advanced courses? Because we can all do the course like I did a couple of weeks ago with you, but then the advanced courses that you're teaching as well, you're going to be asked that. These are very important things to have in your background.
Yeah, it is. And you got to remember a concealed carry permit class is essentially that. It's important. You learn the laws, okay? You learn how to use your firearm safely, but then it stops. You need to search out more classes, some next level type classes. And that my handgun 101 class would fit that perfectly because you're going to learn how to shoot more accurately. You're going to learn how to do mag changes. You're going to learn how to draw your firearm from a holster. You're going to start it's going to be a lot less classroom and more range time. So you're going to get more experience doing it. You need to broaden your horizons. You need to become really proficient with that handgun. And I'm not knocking my class, but unfortunately, a concealed carry permit class, even the enhanced one, does not help you get really, really good at those skills. It's kind of a beginning step, and you should always search out more education. You need to become proficient with it. You need to show that you know how to use it, and you can use it well and you aren't going to accidentally harm somebody else when you have to use it.
And to talk a little bit about the need for this is because the fellow in Tulsa, Oklahoma, well, it was Broken Arrow, which is a suburb. He had the three people a couple of months ago who broke into the house. He encountered them in the kitchen. They had
Hmm.
knives, and he took all three out with an AR-15 and somewhat quickly. He knew what he was doing. I mean, he
Sure.
kept calm, and he's obviously he's got a good aim. He took them out. Now the families are talking about suing him because apparently, with nobody in their families to commit crimes anymore, they've had a loss of income. And so I guess the question becomes, how do you defend yourself in this situation? Well, he's got some training. So when he can be asked during the civil case, why did you do this? What do you know? How do you know what you're doing? And he says, I have this list of classes. Here are all my certificates. And I go to the range every week. He's got a pretty good defense built already.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Just because I'm going to pick on my kids maybe. The older ones know how to drive, but just because there's a car sitting in the driveway doesn't necessarily mean they can drive that. What if they only know how to drive an automatic and that's a stick? Okay, what if you put some really high end, I was lucky enough to get some high end sports car or supercar, let's say. Just because it sits in my driveway and I own it doesn't mean I know how to use it. You need to know how to use your firearm. You need to know how to be proficient and use it correctly. It's only going to help you in the future. It can help you in a court case, but it's also going to help you when you go to defend yourself. Do you know how to draw that firearm? Do you know how to get your cover garment out of the way? Do you know how to draw it out of a bag or a purse if that's the way you choose to carry? Do you know how to get that gun off your ankle proficiently if that's the way you do it? Do you know how to reload that gun? Do you know how to manage a malfunction if there's a malfunction in it? How do you handle that? What do you need to do? Do you know how to change magazines? There's all kinds of stuff that you need to learn and that you need to practice.
And when to get the enhanced carry permit, you put your 98 rounds down,
Sure.
but you're not drawing. And
Right.
law enforcement today all does the 6 point draw.
Mhm.
These are things that if you were ever in a crisis, you'd need to know, and because you don't have time to load the mag, and then you're not telling the guy who's coming at you, wait a minute, you've got to
Yeah.
be able to do
Muscle
this
memory.
smoothly.
Yep. Yeah, you need to develop that muscle memory, and the only way you're going to do that is by going out and shooting a lot, going to the range, taking classes. Going to the range is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that don't even do that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that they pick up their firearm, they take my class, they shoot their 98 rounds, and then it never leaves the holster or it never leaves from underneath their seat the entire rest of the time. They may shoot it maybe once every 3, 4 years. I've seen that happen, but you need to develop that muscle memory. You need to go to the range. If you can afford it and you have the time, you need to search out other classes and learn more. There's so much more than just picking up that handgun and pulling the trigger and putting a hole in a bullseye downrange.
We wanted to point out as well that the people who took your course, some of them already knew what they were doing,
Right.
but there were a lot of us out there who we're learning either from the very beginning or we're learning it all over again, because there's no way. I don't care if you haven't ridden a bicycle in 30 years. Yes, everyone says you never forget, but still you're a little wobbly when you first get back on. So, like anything else in life, you've got to just have that repetitive. Uh,
Yeah.
you can't get away from that.
Well, and I learned something. It sounds funny, and I've done this quite a bit. I've gone through a lot of these classes, and I go out and shoot a lot. But you know what? Every time I have a class, or every time I, attend a shooting class or anything like that, I learn something new every single time. Every single time. You just have to open yourself up to you don't know it all. Nobody knows it all. Educate yourself. You refresh yourself. It's not a bad thing to do.
Here's a figure he gave me. He has an estimate that there are 5 million firearms in private hands in Idaho alone. Population of what, 1.7 million ish. He said there was a figure the government put out a few years ago, 39,000, but he said that's for people who have to, if you have a suppressor or something like that, they're counting
Sure.
those numbers. But the actual, that's a ridiculous figure, and media didn't know what it meant. But 5 million firearms, and a lot of those people who are carrying those things potentially don't have any training. And even though you legally can do it now, you remember you're dealing with a lot of people out there who simply they just decided to strap it on, and they themselves could be dangerous at some point.
You know, I'm oh, I'm walking a tightrope here. I'm walking a fine line here. But I do agree with constitutional carry and the fact that if you've got a gun, you should be able to carry it to protect yourself. But if you are going to carry a firearm to protect yourself and your family, to defend yourself, you need to also bear that burden of responsibility that you owe to yourself, your family, you owe to others in the community to go out and become proficient with this firearm. Know how to use it so you don't make any mistakes or you limit your mistakes when you do have to use it to protect yourself. You are around people who do not carry firearms, you are around civilians every day that aren't causing a problem. And if you have to use this in public, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be able to draw it safely. You need to not make a mess because if you need your firearm and you draw your firearm and you use it improperly, you're not quick, you're not smooth with it, you may make more of a mess than what you should have just left the holster at that point. Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean, you may draw it, you may have an accidental discharge, you may cause more problems than what it's worth. So you need to know what you're doing and be proficient in the use of it.
And to note on that, just that when we talk about the number of people out there who are walking around, he cited an example in our conversation of there are people in some states that have gone to the constitutional carry, and they've literally seen a shoplifter running across the parking lot and decided to fire a shot over the guy's head. Well, again, he's not harming anybody once he's running away. And if he's, if he grabbed a loaf of bread and he's running out the door, that's wrong, it's bad, but it's probably not worth firing off a few rounds. Somebody could get hurt.
Well, yeah, and it's not their place to do that, okay? Most of that's this is what you got to look at. Even if it's not a loaf of bread, maybe it's a bigger item, VCR. That dates me. A computer, something like that. They're stealing something, okay? That stuff is insured by the store. The store has insurance. They're going to cover it. You need to know not to chase that person down. That's not your place. That's the store's problem, not yours. Now, if that person grabs one of your kids as he runs by, is to making off with your kid, or pulls a knife or threatens somebody, and you want to intervene, that is up to you. That is a good place to intervene if you choose to do so. But if just let the store handle it from
But
then.
as we even learned from South Carolina, law enforcers can't shoot people running away unless the guy turns around and points at you. That changes the nature. But we had that shooting a couple of years ago with a law enforcer tragically shooting a fellow who was running away from a traffic stop. And so if the law enforcement can't do it, you certainly can't do it.
Right. I mean, they've got to be a threat, and to a civilian, to a citizen. If the guy is turned around and he's leaving your house, he's running out the front doors, running down the street. Maybe he sees that you have a gun and he turns around and takes off. The threat is over. There is no threat. The threat is leaving. The threat is diminishing as you watch him run into the sunset. You've got to just let him go at that point. You can't have this street outlaw justice going on, and you're gonna stop it.
We wanted to mention Todd Eccles is in studio with us today till 10 o'clock this morning. We're at 9:18, and we've got 61. Bill Colley as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Short little window here before the next break, but we can take some of your telephone calls as well on the other side of that. I just don't. I could take a call right now, but I'd probably cheat you because you'd be able to say, "Hey, how's everybody doing today?" We'd be saying fine, and then we'd be like, "Hey, it's commercial break." So just hold on to the telephone calls. We'll get to you just a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, a few seconds to go here before the break, your contact again.
Yeah, you can call me. You can text me at area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. If you're on Facebook, you can find me under Patriot Defense. Find me, like the page, shoot me a message. I can answer any of your questions.
I should point out too, while Todd is in studio, he's often actually getting text messages from people.
I am. That's kind of what I was just looking at. So I didn't mean to wander, Bill.
Business in real time, and I'm doing the same thing because I'm checking to see if we get any emails related to the show. Because I sometimes, if I'm not checking the email, somebody sends us a question and I don't see it until 10:30. Doesn't do them a lot of
And
good.
that's when you get it, is when you're not looking.
Yeah, true. We've got more coming up in just a couple of minutes on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. You know why we have a slightly lighter commercial load today?
Why?
Because earlier this week we had a new commercial system, a new computer system that we put in place, and it was playing about double the amount of commercials. I was coming out of news and it was playing commercials from 7 after until 10 after. So it's given us more time to talk today.
Hey, I don't mind that. I like to talk.
Todd Eccles in studio with us from Patriot Defense. Bill Colley as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. We're at 922 and we're at 59. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Thank you. I was just wondering, as far as signage or warning, now when I was ranching in Oregon, I had signs around that said trespassers will cheerfully be shot and fed to the dogs. But I don't know, if I can be facetious or how my warning signs are. Could you have that kind of information about, do I just say no trespassing, or what part of no trespassing do you not understand? What kind of signage?
I don't exactly have an exact answer for you, but to be honest with you, if someone crossed onto your property and you would have to go to court, I would think that, even though it's funny, some of those signs are funny. I would think just a no trespassing sign, something you're going to buy at the store, something that's
True.
not funny, that's not goofy, even though those are fun, would be your best bet. Just simple, no trespassing, private property, stay off, whatever you can buy. That's kind of what I would use.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking is I had called in the past and mentioned that I do have a stalker and I've had some increased activity lately, and I just thought I'd be better protected, for warning. But I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Can I add something?
Yeah.
Put those signs up, and you mentioned you had a stalker. You probably already have, but I'm just going to remind you, you probably should call law enforcement and at least get a record of that or any incidences that have occurred between you and whoever the stalker is, just to get them on record now in case something, heaven forbid something happens. But just kind of a little piece of advice there.
I had a friend who was visiting here one time from out of state, and he wanted to look at some property for a potential camp. And we were in Boise County, and he told me I could go on the property if I saw a for sale sign. He said, take a photograph of it, though, for court. But if you take a picture of the for sale sign, that says that that's an invitation to look at the property.
Right.
That would negate, for instance, a sign that said no trespassing. And it reminded me of a story a coworker told me one time. Her uncle got so sick and tired of people on his property hunting who he didn't give permission. He put up a sign with an iron, not a swastika, but an iron cross, and it said Achtung, no trespassing. It
Yeah.
seemed to do the trick.
Yeah, yeah, it might. I kind of when this caller called in and asked about that, I kind of reminded me of some of the things that you can actually buy for firearms, for ARs, or people have stuff laser engraved on their slides of their handguns and stuff, and you've got to be really careful about doing that, at least on your carry gun. You don't want attorneys to if you ever have to use it in self-defense to look at that and say, well, he was looking for trouble, he wanted to hurt someone, he wanted to kill somebody, he was hunting, so you know what, just a basic firearm. Don't put any added extras on it as far as like insults or smile,
my
wait for the
day.
flash, make my day, the Punisher, anything like that. I would you can do that to firearms and that's fun, but keep those as your range toy and just keep a basic stock looking, I won't say stock gun, but stock looking firearm that you carry. That's going to be your best bet.
We have a caller with us. Caller, I think we lost that caller. We'll try the next line. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense at 924.
Good morning, fellas. I'd just like to, just a little different type of topic, but I'd just like to remind everybody to be very, very careful with whatever firearm they're handling. Never point it at anything you're not going to destroy, and never pull the trigger unless you intend to destroy something. In particular, I'd like to talk about, I've got a couple of Chiappa Rhinos, fantastic little pistols. Great shooting, doesn't even feel like you're shooting a .357 Magnum, but they shoot out of the bottom bore instead of the top, and the cylinder rotates different than a regular revolver. I have actually handed it off to a fellow, he was actually a range master at one of the ranges, and let him give it a shot, and he had put one round in it, thinking he was going to count and see which way, just put the one round and have it turn like a regular revolver, shoot the one round, and did not realize that it was coming out of the bottom instead of the top, and I hear click, 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 and he says, your gun's not working, and I walk over to help him out, and he tips it up and pulls the trigger one more time and damn near shot his finger off. So always be wary of the firearm you're handling, and always tell people to be damn careful with them. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I second that. Be safety, safety, safety. Always obey the safety rules. And if when you're handed a firearm, make sure you know how to use that firearm. And if it's something a little different, like that Rhino that you said you had, they're a neat looking firearm. I haven't got a chance to shoot one yet. I always have wanted to, but I haven't. But something like that, or even if someone hands you a 1911, if you're unfamiliar with it, have that person show you how it works.
You have people, of course, when you're training them in the enhanced carry class, when they finish shooting, they have to pop out the mag.
Right.
But if you need to check, I think sometimes to make sure you've got nothing chambered in there, right?
Right. And you need to know how to run that slide and pull that slide back and check it. And this actually is a great leeway into another class that I'm a part of. I'm kind of going in kind of combining with Brothers in Arms Firearms and Filer. We're going to have a class that's only going to be an hour long. It's on June 9th. It's at 6 o'clock in the evening. It'll get over at 7. It's $20 a person. It's a non-shooting class, but we are going to go over, I won't say all your main. We're going to go over all the main types of actions of firearms. We're going to show you how to use them, how to run the slide, how to run safeties, how to release the magazine, how to open the cylinder, show you how they work, show you how to function them, how to function check them, go over all the safety, just to familiarize someone who's brand new to firearms on how to use them. And if they're looking at them at the store, pick it up, run the slide back, lock the slide back, just so they aren't scared, so they understand. Everyone needs to know how they work. And if you don't know, you have to ask. Pride, there should never be a pride issue when it comes to a firearm. I mean, I don't know about this gentleman. I don't, as far as the range master, the range officer. But if he was unfamiliar with how that firearm worked, he should have asked. Pride should not ever get in the way when it comes to safety.
Speaking of safety, we'll probably get into this another time too, to some depth. But we had a story. We've got about a minute before the break. We had a story in the last couple of weeks about a guy hunting and got charged by a bear. So your situations in self-defense are not necessarily always going to be some guy looking to grab your purse in a parking lot. You can be out in the wild, and a lot of people are out there on ATVs, or they're biking, or they're hiking, and that's the other part of this is got to remember some of these animals are a lot quicker than human beings.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and you could be out in the wild, or you could be out in your backyard. There was a gentleman that took my class. This was I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. He took my class, and he called me up a few months later and said he said that he'd had to use his firearm. Wanted me to come by. He wanted to tell me the story, and he was out in his backyard, and he was getting ready to do some yard work, and kind of had some weeds or tall grass or something in his yard, and there was a dog back there, and it wasn't his dog, and it had roamed the neighborhood. I didn't even know what kind of dog it was, but it came tearing out. And he had some little girls. I think his daughters were in the backyard, and that dog came tearing out after him. And he thought for sure that dog was going to attack him. And he drew his gun, and the dog didn't stop. And he took a shot. It hit in the ground. It's really hard to hit a moving target, even the size of a dog, because they move really quick. He didn't hit the dog, but he hit the ground in front of the dog. The dog turned tail and ran. But that was a pretty scary situation. So it's not just the two-legged predators you have to worry about. It's four-legged in town or out of town.
And some who even crawl too as
Yeah.
well. They can be dangerous. We've got a short break. One more half hour coming up with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Oh, the music, a little pause there. Musical interlude, although the song in the summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're practically there. Todd Eccles joining us from Patriot Defense. Bill Colley as well on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're talking firearms. It's 61. Telephone number to reach the show, 736-0300, 736-0300. Okay, as I say, I spent about an hour and a half talking with Doug Sugden the other day at the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department, and I jotted down some notes after our conversation. And he sort of ran down a couple of things with me, too, as well as open and concealed carry. Number one, hazards of open carry. And he was showing me a video where a fellow is standing at a counter at a fast food restaurant. He's ordering lunch, and he's not paying attention. The guy walks up behind him and just calmly pulls that pistol out of his holster and carries it out the door, walks away with it.
Right.
And, that's something that if you've got open carry, you're almost sending an invitation to people that, especially if they're casing a place, you're going to be the first person they're going to try to take out of the way.
Yeah, and this is a kind of if you get online on the online forums between the open carriers, guys who are diehard open carriers, and then you got your concealed carry guys. It's a big point that they argue about all the time. Open carry, that's fine. If that's you, that's fine. You just have to take different steps in doing so. If you're going to open carry, you probably should have some kind of retention on your holster, a snap. I mean, some kind of lock, some kind of retention on your holster. They make different levels of retention holsters. Law enforcement uses them. Um, that's probably a wise thing, so someone doesn't snatch your gun. If you do open carry, that does kind of make you, to a certain extent, that kind of makes you a target. Now, some people will flip that around and say, well, if I open carry, it's going to show people not to mess with me, and I won't have to get into a situation. But I personally, I like concealed carry. Concealed carry, I know I have it. My family knows I have it, and it gives me the option on whether or not I want to get involved. But if I'm open carrying and I become a target, then all of a sudden I have to get involved. What if my family's there? What if they aren't bothering me and I just want to get my family out of there quietly without any problems? If I'm open carry, that decision is taken away from me. But if I'm concealed carry, I can do that. It gives me more options.
And then with concealed carry, there's some drawbacks as well because you have to have the right clothing. I have some big Hawaiian shirts. They make me look fatter than I actually am, but they cover all of that up so nobody knows. or in the wintertime, a hooded sweatshirt sometimes, but you still have to reach under the sweatshirt to reach the firearm. And so there are any number of ways to do this. You could use a fanny pack, but then people, what are you doing as a guy with a fanny pack? You know how that goes. But
Right.
that in itself is not always the most convenient method.
It's a personal decision on what you want to do, and if you choose to still carry, everyone is going to. It's a lifestyle, okay? You can't just throw on a t-shirt and walk out the door unless it covers your firearm real well and you're trying to conceal. Some people it'll print to where you can still see the firearm with the shirt over it. Some people don't care about that, and that's fine. But it is a lifestyle. But you've got to. I tell everyone, whatever you decide to do, open carry, concealed carry, whatever gun you decide to use, wherever you decide to carry it, however you decide to conceal it, whether it be a shirt, whether it be a fanny pack, a purse, whatever, you need to practice and train with what you carry and how you carry. With what you carry and how you carry. You need to practice, 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 train that way. Become proficient at drawing that firearm if you've got to move a sweatshirt or your shirt or off your ankle or out of a bag. You've got to know how to you got to train the way you carry and how you carry. That's the best way to put it.
Speaking of the ankle, it's a long reach in an emergency.
It definitely is. Now I've carried a couple guns before. I've been known to carry two guns, and I'll take ankle carry for the second gun. That's no problem. Some places you go, you can legally carry a firearm. Okay, some places you go, you can legally carry a firearm, but it'll be frowned upon if the people you are with know. So some people like to conceal a little deeper, and one of those places is a small gun on the ankle. Okay, it's less noticeable if you're at some kind of dinner party or something, and someone's going to give you a hug, and you don't know how to hug, and you're concealed carrying. They're gonna, you always need to go low so their arms go high. Because if you don't, they're going to feel that and they're going to go, my, what is that? And you got to tell them it's a gun. You want to keep those things to yourself. Stuff you need to think about right now and decide what to do.
We wanted to point out we've got a break coming up in about a minute, but if you have a question or comment, we've got one long segment of the program still ahead. And if you'd like to chat with us on the other side of that break, the telephone number 736-0300, 736-0300. And quickly, too, as he was citing with me the other day, if you go into a restaurant or somewhere like that, the first thing you should probably do is make sure you know where all the exits are, because what may happen, it's just the simplest thing to do is get out, not get into confrontation, but know where the exits are so you can quickly get out the door and get away from that trouble.
Yep, and that's what we call situational awareness. Knowing your surroundings, knowing where the exits are, paying attention to what's going on around you so you can get out of there if you need to, so you can avoid a situation where you might have to use your firearm. It's good to know where the exits, where the entrances are. Maybe you can get out through the kitchen. Maybe there's a big window. Just it's knowing your surroundings. It could save your life. Also, I want to just touch on something here. My phone has been lighting up during the radio show, and I love it. I got text messages. I just got a phone call. I will return all your stuff after the show. I'm not going to do it during the show. It'll kind of interrupt the flow. So you'll hear from me soon.
We've got more with Todd Echols coming up in just a couple of minutes. It's 9:40, and we're at 61. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Todd Echols in the studio with us on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Coming up on 9:43, we're at 62. Bill Colley with you as well this morning. Telephone number to reach the show, 736-0300, 736-0300. So, of course, I have a lot of notes that we're probably not going to get to all of this stuff today.
We'll save them for next Friday.
We could. But a couple of things that did stand out in my conversation with Sergeant Sugden at the Sheriff's Department. In his family, he and his wife, they talk practical and tactical.
Mm-hmm.
Tactical, you hope never to have to really be involved with. Practical is, for instance, nothing against people who want to use 45 caliber. It puts a big hole in something.
Right.
It definitely is powerful. I mean, on the other hand, with what you're normally talking about, the ease of using 9mm will do the job probably just as well. And then we got to talking about how if you have a family, it might be wise for family members to own the same firearm. So in other words, if you ever are in a tactical situation, I mean, if 9mm is practical, but if you're in a tactical situation, you can be handing back and forth the same magazines. There's not going to be, everyone is on the same page, that is. So if you're ever in that situation, you can be tossing that magazine back and forth to somebody. So if everybody has the same gun,
Mm-hmm.
same ammunition, you simplify things for an emergency.
It's all interchangeable.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, it's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes sense to me. I haven't quite gone that far. My wife's not real bit. She's a little lady, and she can't really shoot I shoot a full size gun, even though it's a 9 millimeter. She has to get something that fits her grip, which is going to be a lot smaller. What I do is I just try to keep everything down to at least 9 millimeter. Makes it easy when I go to buy ammo. But we can share ammo, that kind of thing if we ever had to. But that totally makes sense. Another thing that I've heard too was if you have to use your gun in self-defense, chances are they're going to take it from you for a little while until the case is settled. And so you might as well, if you buy one, you might as well buy two, and you got one that you already know how to shoot as backup. So use that one. Tell that to your wife when you want to go buy a gun. I got to buy two, honey. It's practical.
I'm sure that'll go over well in most families.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
And we've got a couple of other things I wanted to mention here too as well. He was talking about how most police officers now are using what's called a 6-point draw, and he said that every few years there are changes. It gets refined. He said you've got people who've learned in the military, or they learned in the military 20 years ago, but the way that they were drawing is different than the way they're being trained to draw today. And because of these changes, but the idea is it gives you're looking for the most fluid motion.
Most fluid and efficient. Yes, it's all about efficiency. And there's a handful of different ways to draw your firearm. Just like there's, you got your basic Weaver stance when you shoot. You got your basic isosceles stance when you shoot, and then you got hybridizations of whatever. And there's different grips. So I'm not teaching the handguns 101 class. I'm not teaching that. I actually have a gentleman who is a law enforcement instructor. He was a law enforcement instructor. He now works for the military. He's in the military. He's going to come down and use some of his knowledge in this class. And I'm not quite exactly sure which draw he's going to teach at the class. But I guarantee you, if he's a law enforcement instructor, it's going to be the most fluid, most efficient one that he knows. But yeah, you don't want any wasted movements. Seconds what time, getting it done quickly is what matters. So you don't want any wasted movements when you draw. You literally, when you want your hand on the firearm, a good grip, bring it up, rotate it out. And so as you're pushing the firearm out, it comes up into your line, your side of aim right there, and you're good to go. None of this bowling, none of this fishing. You guys can't see me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm waving my hands around over here, but yeah, there's you can go on YouTube, Google it on YouTube, look it up on YouTube. You'll see numerous different types of draws and what we're talking about as far as efficiency.
Now, years ago, I saw a movie which was about the Royal Canadian Mounted Police,
Mm-hmm.
and the officer was on horseback. It's a movie that was set, I think, in the early 1900s. He was on horseback. He had a holster that was completely enclosed his service revolver,
Right.
and it had a clasp on it. And I think that was probably a fairly accurate portrayal at the time of how this would have been done. But when the man actually needed the firearm, he would have to reach down,
Unbuckle it.
horse, unbuckle it, and then reach in and fish the firearm out of that holster. And so we've seen some dramatic changes there. Now, good in one way, it keeps your firearm clean if you're in a dusty environment and
Sure.
all. But it again, the timing involved with all of that while you dig around and try to fish that out of there is critical.
But I guarantee it is, and I guarantee you though that when they carried their handguns like that, they were probably they're probably not as quick as we are now, but they were probably pretty darn quick in the day of getting that out. They probably trained and practiced to get it out quickly, get it out efficiently, and get it in the game. Just even though today's holsters, I'm sure, are much improved, the retention levels are much improved. They have snaps instead, which you just pretty much pop off really quick with your hand. Just like we're proficient now, they were proficient then. So what I'm saying is, just as I stated earlier, train with how you carry and with what you carry. Get good at it. Know if it's got any deficiencies. Know if it's got any problems so you can train around those. Or maybe you may just look at it and say, you know what? This is going to get me killed. This is a bad choice. I need a different gun. I need a different holster. You need to know that now before you're put into a situation where you have to find it out then.
A lot of holsters still attached to the belt, but you keep the gun inside your waistband versus outside the waistband.
Yeah, they have what they call IWB, which stands for in the waistband. and it's a holster that it clips onto your belt, but it's inside the waistband. It's got a hard Kydex shell, and that is how you help conceal it. And then you have OWB, which is outside the waistband, which is just like it sounds. It's outside the waistband. It still hooks onto your belt, and you drape a shirt over. You just have to wear a little longer cover garment than you would if you were carrying inside the waistband.
If you're doing inside the waistband, that's for people who likely tuck their shirts in more often.
Some of them, yeah. Not all of them are tuckable. Those ones that you're talking about are what they have to be deemed as tuckable holsters, and they've got clips that actually there's a gap between the holster and your pants, and you can actually tuck your shirt in. That's the way I carry at church.
We want to point out if you're ever in a situation, because you mentioned the different stances, but if you're ever in an emergency situation, you could be sitting in your car. So stance is irrelevant. You could be under a table in a restaurant.
Yep.
Stance is irrelevant. All of these things are going to play into this too as well. So that gets us back to practice and knowing how to handle this in an emergency. Because if you're crawling around on your side in an aisle of a restaurant for concealment, which you may, Lord forbid, but if you're ever in that situation, that's going to play a role in this too.
Well, and there's different things you can work on and you can learn on this, and there's different safe ways you can go about it. But you can learn how to shoot while you're laying down. You can learn how to shoot laying on your side if you're under that table, if you're on the ground. You can learn how to shoot while you're kneeling. You can learn how to draw and shoot while you're kneeling. Draw and shoot while you're laying down, prone, on your side, on your back. There's different safe ways of going about doing this stuff. You don't want to shoot yourself in the kneecap if you're laying on your back and you have to shoot. You have to be aware of where everything is. Now, this is something you got to be very careful in. You don't want to just lay down and fall to the ground and try to do this for you to take a bullet in the leg. Okay, and I would imagine I'm going to have an upcoming class here probably in the next few months where we discuss these kinds of things. It's just kind of a progression. It's not something you just jump into. You have to. You got your permit. You got this next step class. It's handguns 101 class. Then you can go to a 102, 103, 104, or whatever those may be, and you just have to climb your way up the ladder.
We want to point out Todd Eccles is joining us in studio. We've got about 8 minutes to go this morning. We're at 63. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. Todd's phone has been busy this morning as people are looking to talk to him about not only the regular classes but the what you call
handguns 101 class,
the advanced classes, and which he's going to be offering. For people who'd like to contact you, how do they go about that?
They can call me. They can text me. Area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. You can find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Shoot me a message there. Comment. I've got the posts up about the classes. Put a comment on there. Tell me, hey, I want on this list, or ask me some questions, and I will get you taken care of.
Now, most people who still carry are not carrying around town if they're going to the grocery store and various places, especially the open carry people, because that makes other folks nervous. And there's a concern that gives anybody who's a Second Amendment advocate, it gives us a bad name because it just gives people on the other side what you might call more, how shall we put it, ammunition is
pardon the pun.
Figurative, yeah, ammunition against us. Because it frightens people.
Right. I think you're actually seeing, this is just me talking, I think you're actually seeing less open carry because now that they've ushered in constitutional carry, those people, as long as they stay in the state of Idaho, they can go ahead and conceal carry. So that's what they're doing. And I think those people were, I don't want to irritate people, but they either didn't want to go get their permit or they were too lazy to go get their permit. And so now they don't have to have it. Still, you need those classes. You need to know the laws. There's so much they're missing when they don't take the class. You need to know the laws, Idaho lethal force laws, and all the basics. You need to feel that burden of responsibility and educate yourself. It's what you need to do if you're going to carry a firearm in public. It's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what has to be done.
You may have seen this. There was a fellow who used to live in Idaho, and he's moved to Wisconsin, and he is lobbying the legislature there for something along the lines of constitutional carry. And he went to a hearing this week, might have been yesterday or the day before, and he went to a hearing and he said, I was basically the only person there arguing from the Second Amendment side. He said the room was filled with people who were arguing about, oh, this is dangerous, we need to curb this. And so the voices are still out there. In fact, his point was, we probably have an equal number of people who support me, but they just don't show up at these hearings and make their voices heard. And he said, unfortunately, people on the legislative side, the only difference in Idaho is because this was a Western state, you already had that culture and operation here.
Right.
So it changes the playing field a bit. But the problem they're having in a lot of states is people who actually carry just simply don't show up. Maybe because they don't want people to know.
It could be. I think that we've just kind of gotten relaxed a little bit now. I think, Trump we have President Trump now, and he hasn't he hasn't done anything for the Second Amendment, but he hasn't done anything against the Second Amendment either. I think he's just probably, to be honest with you, probably just going to leave everything the same. People are going, oh, okay, we can breathe, we can relax. Now is not the time to relax. Get out there and fight for your rights while you can. If not, they're going to disappear overnight, just like they have before.
There are people, though, and I learned this as well at the sheriff's department the other day, who fear that they fear there's a registry out there, and turns out there's no such thing.
They think there's a registry out there. You were in my
Right.
class, and I think there was someone in the class you attended that said, "Well, don't you have to register your guns? This isn't registered. How can I bring it?" Well, first of all, if you're supposed to register it, you probably shouldn't even own it unless it's registered. Second of all, there's no registry.
If you had something that was automatic, you'd register it.
Well, yeah,
Right.
but then you have to have a class 3 and that kind of thing. You got to pay you got
We
to pay
referenced
lots of money.
suppressors earlier. These are
Yeah.
things you register, but that seems to be a misconception out there. In fact, when they do a check on you, when I bought the pistol, when they just run a quick check, it comes back, and it was a matter of 2 minutes.
Mhm.
But my name didn't go into a file somewhere. That's what people I think are concerned about. I did not get somebody is not sitting around putting my name down in a ledger saying, "Aha, if we ever need to go out to Idaho and clean this up, we can go to this house." That's not how it works.
Well, just like everyone's got a smartphone with a camera that's watching you at all times, Bill. That's what people think, and people are just afraid to put their name into a computer. People are afraid to get their name on a list and even get their permit. If I'm already on. I guarantee you, I'm already on some list out there. Okay, some kind of list out. I'm on all kinds of lists, and if there's any list I want to be on, it's the one that says I support my Second Amendment rights and I have a concealed carry permit.
And I got fingerprinted the other day, but
Yeah.
I had a government job at one time, so that was already done.
Mhm.
When I was working for the Postal Service, of all people,
Yep.
I was fingerprinted for the first time, to my knowledge, in my life. Who knows? Maybe when I was 6 months old, it happened. But so there's already a record of my fingerprint somewhere, sitting in a file. So it wasn't as if that I had to.
It's not like you hadn't done it before.
Right. But since this is for that enhanced carry permit, people only are getting this to go over state lines and the like. If you don't ever plan to carry outside the state, then you don't have to worry about being even fingerprinted.
Well, nah, you still have to go. Even with your basic permit, I think you still have to get fingerprinted.
But if you're just doing constitutional carry,
Constitutional carry, yeah, you're right. If you
you,
just do
you would
constitutional carry, you don't have to get fingerprinted.
right. And if you carry just because you're out on the ranch and you carry because you might come across a snake and something that's nasty like that,
Right.
you might never have to worry about that.
Exactly, and you're good to go. You don't need a permit. But if you want to take some other classes, I can help you out with those too, because
Yes.
everyone needs some kind of work on shooting. Heck, I know I even need some work. I was out with a buddy over the weekend, and we were kind of critiquing each other, and I was doing something that was I won't even get into it, but the way I was drawing and shooting, I was doing something that he kind of looked at me funny. He said, "Do you know you're doing?" And I didn't realize it. So it pays to go out and practice, even if you think you're really good.
Hmm.
You can always improve. And that actually leads me up to check out my podcast. I do a Patriot Defense podcast. I just released one yesterday. It's out on iTunes. Look it up. I posted it on my Facebook page. I interviewed my buddy. He's into guns, lots of reloading, and it's a pretty good show.
Want to thank you for coming by today. One more time for people who'd like to get in touch.
Call or text me at area code 620-794-6223, area code 620-794-6223. Find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Like the page. Let me know if you got any questions. And while you're there, subscribe and check out my podcast.
Todd Eccles joining us from Patriot Defense this morning, and we've got a short break. News will follow, and after news from Fox, Rush Limbaugh's program, I would think he'll be talking a little bit about Paris Climate Agreement. I think most of your shows today that you'll listen to here will probably be centered around that. Remember Western Days, big parade tomorrow in Twin Falls. In the meantime, God willing, if the creek don't rise, they'll allow me, Bill Colley, to come back and do this all over again Monday morning between 8 and 10 o'clock.